From the campus of Arkansas State University, this is Centennial Reflections.
On to victory, breaking the second to none. Let's make this game history, along with the others in one. For red and white shall ever wave on high for ages through.
This Centennial Moment series explores ASU history from its start as an agricultural district school to the multifaceted university it is today. I'm Rich Carvell, host of this series, and our guest today is Dr. Joel Gambill, who's chair of the Department of Journalism. Joel, glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
You were a student back in the early to mid-'60s.
Yes.
What was the difference between that orientation period in 2009 as compared to when you came to school in '61?
Well, one of the things that was certainly different for us in 1961 is that we wore beanies. And the requirement was all people in orientation wear their beanies to orientation, but you also had to wear them during the week. And if you went by Clyde, the statute that was located in Wilson Hall, you were to either tip your hat or touch the button on your beanie. And anyway, we were required to do that. And one of the things that we also had to do, if you failed to do that and an upperclassman noticed it, you were supposed to sing the fight song right then and there.
Right then and there.
That's right.
So students nowadays don't wear beanies.
No,
obviously.
I think this ended about 1970, but it had a long time tradition. Dean Moore and his staff were all a part of our orientation and kept us going on this.
And of course, you mentioned one figure who's important, Bob Moore, who was Dean of Students. Right. But in terms of journalism, Tex Plunkett was Mr. Journalism.
That's correct. He was my mentor, and he was really the founder of the journalism program at Arkansas State University. He was a Wilson Award winner. And very soon after he got the degree, he came back and started the journalism program and was a longtime faculty member. And so many of our students who have gone through the journalism program remember him so fondly. He was a person that just inspired you. He also was very open and friendly. And one of the things that I certainly recall, he always asked his students to call him Tex. He said, only the people who don't know me call me Mr. Plunkett. And so students always referred to him as Tex, and he was a great storyteller.
Tex, where did the Tex come from?
Well, he was adopted, but he had grown up in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
And and he also went to the University of Texas to get his master's degree in journalism. And so those two things, I'm not sure which one, but led to his nickname of Tex Plunkett.
To be Tex.
Right.
What's your favorite Tex Plunkett story?
Well, there are a lot of them. One that pops in my mind always when I'm asked is, and this is so much like Tex, if you could imagine this. He was, one day, he was driving along Southwest Drive near Jonesboro High School, and one of his former students who had been an editor of the paper and had gone off and gotten involved in mortuary science had come to Jonesboro for a convention driving an ambulance. And he recognized Tex's car and started honking and trying to get him to stop. And Tex just kept going for a while. But finally, he got up by him and kind of pulled over in front of him. And this student, come out of the car, and Tex, he got out of his car and he held up his hands and said, "No, I'm not ready for you yet."
Well, many of us have good stories and good remembrances about Tex Plunkett. He was a figure, obviously, in the transition from Arkansas State College to Arkansas State University, which occurred in 1967. Right. What are your memories of that day?
Of the university status?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I happened to be advisor of the Herald, the student newspaper, and that was
so you were back on staff at
right.
that time.
I'd been in school from 1961 to 65 and came back in the fall of 1966, which was the year we really made our successful start toward the drive to achieve university status in early January of 1967. And one of the things that we did, Roy Oakert was editor, and I had a really great staff. We decided that we were going to get university status, and so we put out a special edition. And we planned for that for months, a 4-page full-size issue announcing ASU a reality. And we worked on this, and the day that arrived when we were going to Little Rock to actually get all this accomplished.
Legislature was in session.
Right.
And, yeah.
Early January. It was between semesters at ASU. We, at that time, finished in the fall, or the fall semester, I beg your pardon, in January. The bill had passed the House, like 83 to 17, something like that. And this day, on January 17th, we were going, it was in front of the Senate. And it went before the committee that morning, passed the committee 9-1, and went into the Senate. And of course, the galleries were packed by people from ASU. And there were 4 of us representing the Herald who were there. We called ourselves the Fearless Foursome. We were there and covered it, took photographs in the chambers of the Senate, and it was just a great experience. And that afternoon, after it passed the Senate 29-5, we went over to the governor's office, and there had been some question as to whether or not Governor Rockefeller would sign that bill. He had been quoted earlier that he would not sign it, but there had been a drive and some really influential editorials by newspapers throughout the state, including the Arkansas Traveler, the student newspaper at Fayetteville, calling for university status for ASU. And so Governor Rockefeller signed the bill, and immediately we headed back to get a special edition of the Herald. The paper that came out eventually said ASU a reality. And again, we had done 2 of the pages ahead of time, but the front and the back we were working on during that time, and so we feverishly were trying to get back to get all this put together and get it out as a special or extra edition. Well, we started out on the way back, and it was spitting rain, and then a little bit of snow, and then a little bit of sleet.
This is back from Little Rock to
Jonesboro, which was normally in those days 2.5 hours or so, and we had to get back and get this paper out. Well, the weather got worse and worse, and by the time we got to Searcy, snow was all over the road. And then when we got to Wiener, there were just cars all off the ditch. But
tell me the rest of this in a moment.
Okay.
We need to break right now. We'll be back in just a minute.